Hey, boys and girls, Cursed Curator Monthly content. Today we're covering Curations, media of 1942. This has been a long time coming, but I've been a little bit lazy with it, but we're back with another media video. Yay! First film up is Now Voyager. A frumpy spinster blossoms under therapy and becomes an elegant, independent woman. I have a lot to say about this film. It's great. It's great. Director is Irving Rapper. Writers include Casey Robinson, Olive Higgins Prouty. Stars include Bette Davis, Paul Henreid, and Claude Rains, a name we've seen a number of times. Oh boy, oh boy. So this film, as a IMDb user put it, this is about a ugly duckling turning into a swan, and I agree with that sentiment very heavily. To basically put into perspective here is that our protagonist here, let me pull up her name so I get it right. I've been mispronouncing names like crazy lately. Charlotte Vale. Miss Vale. She was being controlled by her mother. That's basically what this entire film is all about. Her mother controlled her, and she basically decided, you know what? Screw that. Bunk that. She went off to a sanitarium, which to me sounds insane, because at least where I live, sanitariums basically were a death trap. But due to her stay there, she became independent, she became more confident, and she meets a man, I believe, on a cruise. Again, this has been a while since I last watched this, so this was like months prior, and I'm going off pure memory here. Um, After she goes on a cruise, she meets a man, and she has a whole affair with him, and then she eventually returns back home to basically confront her mom with her newfound independence. It basically sums up the whole film in a nutshell, honestly. See, let's get to the trivia. The biggest box office hit of Bette Davis's career, and well deserved. She did good in this film. The movie line, "Oh Jerry, don't let's ask for the moon. We have the stars," was voted as number 46 movie quote by the American Film Institute out of 100. Paul Henreid's act of lighting two cigarettes at once caught the public's imagination, and he couldn't go anywhere without being accosted by women begging him to light cigarettes for them. On-set observers reported that Bette Davis often seemed to be directing the film for Irving Rapper. Unlike others she had worked with, his approach to her was much more conciliatory. Rather than order her to play a scene a certain way, he would ask her to try his ideas to see if they would work for her, which I think is the best form of directing, is that you work with your actors and actresses. You work with the entire set, honestly. Like what works for them is more natural. It feels like it's more real. It feels more genuine instead of being just directed outright like a robot. Of course, it can work. It can work either way, of course, but it feels more genuine to me. If it's working together, like friendship and happiness, honestly. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get to our next film, which is The Palm Beach Story. We have a lovely lineup of films here. We have a total of 16. We already did one, so that's out of the way here. So The Palm Beach Story. A New York inventor needs cash to develop his big idea, so his adoring wife decides to raise it by divorcing him and marrying an eccentric Florida millionaire with a capricious high society sister. That sums it up. Director is Preston Sturges. Writers include Preston Sturges, Ernest Lemmel. Excuse me. Stars include Claudette Colbert, Joel McCree, and Mary Astor. So there's a very confusing name here because I kept pronouncing it as Gary, but it's Gary, I believe. That is our female lead. Because we would be very confusing with the namings, but this is how it is, humans. To sum up the story, Geary and Tom Jeffers are finding married life hard. Tom is an inventor / architect, and there's very little money for him to live on. And they're about to be thrown out of their apartment when Geary meets rich businessman. Being shown around as a prospective tenant, he gives Geary $700 to start a life afresh. But Tom refuses to believe her story, and they quarrel. And she basically decides the marriage is over and heads to Palm Beach for a very fast divorce. And Tom stops her. This film actually has a very, very cool tagline: "To be or to not to be married? That is the question." And ironically enough, we actually have that same film later we'll be covering in this part, or rather episode, today. Look forward to that. Let's go into the trivia. Although I will read off one goof because I thought it was funny. On the train, the men with shotguns shoot out the glass of the same window several times. Yeah, that window wronged them. Their trivia. In the long dolly shot of Joel McCree and Mary Astor showing on the pier from Rudy Vallee's yacht, Preston Sturges makes a rare Alfred Hitchcock-style appearance as the chubby, mustachioed leader of the crew toting Claudette Colbert's luggage. Was to be Carol Lombard's role after she completed the They All Kissed the Bride in 1942, but her death in a plane crash had her replaced by Claudette Colbert Colbert in this film and Joan Crawford in the other, which makes me wonder how Miss Bette Davis's career would have changed if, of course, Miss Lombard did not die. Preston Sturges' perfectionism slowed down production. He refused to move on to close-ups until he had a perfect master shot. He would stop and do a new take if an actor changed a word of the script. William Dermott, who appeared in 8 Sturges films, would later say he had a great memory. If you change anything, he'd say, "Wait a minute." And goddamn, he was right. That man knew his baby. He knew his creation. You ain't changing shit. The original title of this film was Is Marriage Necessary? But this was deemed too Coventry, the production code. And you know what? Because this one's kind of interesting. I'll read it too. I typically only like to read 4 or maybe 2, depending how long you were into this. But one thing slowing down the film was Preston Sturges' problems with Mary Astor. Although she was an accomplished screen actress, the Sturges brand of comedy did not come naturally to her. She would later write, "It was not my thing. I couldn't talk in a high, fluty voice and run my words together, as he thought high society women did, or at least mad society women who'd had 6 husbands and $6 million." Mary Astor. I can't wait to do a Legend Lens on her. It's going to be a great time. Speaking of Legend Lens, one's coming soon. I got pushed back by my school schedule, but I'm back now, so yay. So this next film is the Magnificent Ambersons, and I believe this is a Orson Welles film. Last I checked. 1 second though, and I need a little quick drink of water. Yes, indeed. Okay, the spoiled young heir to the decaying Amberson fortune comes between his widowed mother and the man she had always loved. Oh, okay. Directors include Orson Welles, Fred Fleck, and Robert Wise. Writers include Booth Tarkington, Orson Welles, and Joseph Cotton. Stars include Tom Holt, Joseph Cotton, and Dolores Costello. All right. So, this is a film that I will say, I think it's one of Mr. Welles' greatest films he's ever made. To basically dive a bit more in the storyline here, just so you get a better idea. The young, handsome, but somewhat wild Eugene wants to marry Isabel Amberson, daughter of a rich upper-class family. But she instead marries dull and steady Wilbur Menifer. Their only child, George, grows up a spoiled brat, as that typically happens. Years later, Eugene comes back, and now mature widower, and a successful automobile maker. After Wilbur dies, Eugene asks Isabel again to marry him, and she's very much receptive. But the problem here is that, of course, her son resents this, and ooh boy. The aunt who's like Aunt Fanny, she comes in basically sabotage the whole damn thing, and a series of disaster befalls the Ambersons and George. And he gets comeuppance in the end. Well, that basically sums it all up. Which he deserves this comeuppance, mind you. You're trying to ruin your mother's love life. Your father is dead now, and as sad as it is, that you don't want your mom to move on, you need to get over it, bud. In the end, basically George is like what's the word? Broke. He's a broke boy now. And he needs to find a higher paying job effectively. And I believe inside a factory. I don't remember what kind it was though. Unfortunately though, if I remember correctly, he just walks off in a haze. Which it's just one of those things, and I believe he gets injured eventually, and I don't think he dies, but he just gets injured. And I do recall it does end kind of happy-ish for him, but it's really a fog on my mind right now because it's been I want to say at least 3 months left like I last saw this film. Yeah, a total like 3 months. Like like always, I tend to be further behind in recordings than I am actually watching the actual films. So right now, just as a reference, where we know get to trivia, I'm currently in the year 1958 for like watching films. Uh, That's a reference for you right there. So, because I tend to want to be ahead just so I can understand the plot lines and explain them a bit better. But that's how it be. And of course, I forget things, so it doesn't really help that much. The consensus of opinion, according to nearly everyone who saw the original conclusion, which included a tour of the decaying Emerson mansion, was that it was much more powerful than the tactile and happy ending. Yeah. Um, I feel like a family that like lost all their wealth, and you just see the natural decay of that is a lot more powerful than the bullcrap happy ending we got in the end. One of former Silent Star Dolores Costello's last roles. She was forced to retire from the film business, and as her face had become badly scarred by early film makeup, which was highly caustic. So, if you don't know, back then they didn't care about the actors and actresses' well-being like that. And I will say, I feel as if there wasn't as much research and study to make sure that these people would be okay from the things they're putting on their damn face and stuff like that. Unfortunately, and one day we will be doing a deep dive into the practices of like Hollywood from like long ago. That's something that I've always wanted to do, but I wasn't very confident in that I could actually portray and do it justice. But one day I'll do it. The lost footage of Orson Welles' original cut of the film has earned a sort of holy grail status among film fans. A number of high-profile Hollywood figures have embarked on searches for the footage. In the vaults at Paramount Studios, which absorb the RKO lot and archives, and around Los Angeles, including Peter Bondovich, Francis Ford Coppola, Henry Joglum, and William Fredrickson. Fredrickson, in particular, spent years scouring Paramount as he was married to longtime studio boss Sherry Lensig. As of 2018, none of their searches had turned up the missing footage. That's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. A lost piece of media right there. Composer Bernard Harmon had his name removed from the credits to protest the way RKO tampered with his work. Mmm. Mmm. It's always one of those protests that really catches my eye, honestly. But that's enough of that. We have a new film to cover, and the time is burning because I have things to do after this, but I'm not trying to rush. Next up is The King's Row. The dark side and hypocrisy of provincial American life is seen through the eyes of 5 children as they grow to adulthood at the turn of a century. Director includes Sam Wood. Writers include K.C. Robinson and Henry Balaman. Stars include Ann Sheridan, Robert Cummings, and Ronald Reagan. Yeah, yep, it's him, the Reagan. Yes, the future president. Well, future for them, not for us. Ooh, I believe this is like Reagan's like breakout role. I think it is. I can't remember. Reagan's filming career, his movie career, I never paid much attention to it. When it came to him, I always paid more attention to obviously his presidency. uh, so let's get into the plot line here. 5 children in an apparently ideal American small town find their lives changing as the years pass near the turn of a century in 1900. Paris Mitchell and Drake McHunn, both of whom had lost their parents, are best friends. Paris dreams of becoming a doctor, studying under the father of his sweetheart, Cassandra Tower, while Drake plans becoming a local businessman when he receives his full inheritance. Choosing girlfriends in the meantime as they become adults, the relation of local secrets threatens to ruin their hopes and dreams. That basically sums up the entire film. Sums up the gist of it, honestly. I want to say I enjoyed this film, but it's not like my favorite. It's not anything truly special. I mean, It's one of those films where if you watch like any TV show today, it kind of has a similar vibe where these people are also covering these dark things that are like happening in the background of their town. And I feel like it's like a plot of the Netflix damn TV show. I'm sure to offend somebody. I don't care though. But let us go to the trivia. Eric Wolfgang Kongold's score was played during the inauguration of Ronald Reagan as president. Ronald Reagan titled his 1965 autobiography after his biggest line in the movie, "Where's the rest of me?" He described this movie as the best in which he appeared. Hey, we Eric Wolfgang Korngold's score proved to be hugely popular with the movie going public. Warner Brothers was I can't pronounce that word. I'm so sorry. Induniated with written requests for his sheet music. Unfortunately, his score failed to receive an Academy Award nomination. Really? It was good though. Okay. Ginger Rogers turned down the role of Mandy Mahonigan. Huh. Well, that's it for our tribute for this film. Next up is, well, I was putting it off as long as I could. There's another film here that came out this year, but it's nothing special. It's just Casablanca. Who cares? It's one of the best films in human history. Just want to put it out there. It's also looking propaganda and noir. So I'm kind of biased off the bat. So a cynical expat American cafe owner struggles to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. I loved this film because of the work put into the cinematography. It is amazing. You'll notice. Okay. I know I'm gonna head it myself. You know what? Okay. Director includes Michael Curtis. Writers include Philip G. Epstein, Julius J. Epstein, and Howard Koch. The stars include Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and Paul Henreid. So now I can be in gush over this film. So I thought the lighting was amazing here, and it does have a very hard, it goes hard in this, being the noir style lighting, where you'll see the darkness and the light on the sides of faces. And our lovely leading lady here, if I remember correctly, they use something on her face. It was like some sort of like it wasn't starch. It was some sort of like thin material to like make her skin look perfect, basically. But yeah, her skin is just perfect, and that's not her natural skin. I thought that was amazing, and you would never notice, and you just look very carefully at her, at Ilsa. Beyond that, I thought the film really dived in heavily when it came to the romance side of things and how things are dire in the situation they're in, and lots of hard choices are happening, and they don't know if they're going to see the next day. I thought that was really cool. At the end of the day, this is a propaganda film, but is a damn good propaganda film. It's not. What I'll say is, if I cannot detect that it's propaganda, even though it's a propaganda based thing, I think it did an amazing job. A film that doesn't dive too heavily into the propaganda, at least to me, I didn't sense like propaganda that hard. Um, it did a good enough job. Now, this is a film that I will say immediately, when I get the chance, I'll be doing a deep dive into the entire film. It's that I just don't have the time to go that hard in this video. As I said before, I'm on a time crunch, and I think get all of this done. But don't worry, we'll be covering this. I'll tell you that now. So let me go down to trivia. Woohoo! We all love trivia. At least I love trivia. I don't know about you guys. Oh, sorry, the page was going rather slow. Many of the actors who played the Nazis were in fact European Jews who have fled Nazi occupation. Rick's Cafe was one of the few original sets built for the film. The rest were all recycled from other Warner Bros. Productions due to wartime restrictions on building supplies. During the scene in which La Marseillaise, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that, is sung over the German song Die Watch am Rhein, the Watch on the Rhine. Many of the actors had real tears in their eyes, and a large number were actual refugees from Nazi persecution in Germany and elsewhere in Europe, and were overcome by the emotions the scene brought out. The scene was inspired by Jean Renoir's Grand Illusion in 1937, in which French soldiers in a German POW camp sing the song as a similar gesture of defiance. Marcel Dalio, who played the Emile Croupier, had also appeared in The Grand Illusion as Lieutenant Rosenthal. La Miserere, or I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry, was written in 1792 by Claude Joseph Roget de Lys in Strasbourg after the declaration of war by France against Austria. It was originally titled Chant de Guerre Pure. I'm sorry. I can't pronounce that. War song for the Rhine Army. Because the film was made during World War II, the Russian was not allowed to film at an airport after dark for security reasons. Instead, it used a soundstage with a small cardboard cutout airplane in forced perspective to give the illusion the plane was a full-sized. They used little people to portray the crew preparing for the plane to take off. And years later, the same technique was used in Alien, 1979, in the scene where the crew discovers the dead space jockey, with director Ridley Scott's son and some of his friends go down in spacesuits. That is a really cool piece of trivia. So our next film is Saboteur. Which, like, as a child, I thought this was based off the game. The game was based off this film. That is what I thought as a child. I've seen this film long ago. This is not my first time seeing this. 1 second. I must make sure I have all my ducks in a row here so we can have everything ready. But what I have you all here, this upcoming Saturday, I'll be making the first video on the gaming channel. It will be, and I've decided here, Mario Kart, just so I can prepare myself mentally for Mafia's 1 and its stupid saving system. I tried so many times to record that freaking video. Ooh, my lord. Okay, my bad, peeps. So let's hop in this film. Saboteur. A young man accused of sabotage goes on the run to prove his innocence. Director includes Alfred Hitchcock. Writers include Peter Vetrell, Joan Harrison, and Dorothy Parker. Stars include Priscilla Lane, Robert Cummings, and Otto Kruger. But first, water. So as of always, this is a Hitchcock film, so automatically it's pretty much goated. The next film I'm actually a bit more excited about. Even though it's been like years since I've seen it. Yeah, it's kind of crazy seeing this 2 films on this list that I think I've seen all the films already. You know, I already watched them. But, like I watched these before the actual journey even began, basically. So what do I have to say with this film? It's a film that, I guess I can say I liked the idea that it involves, and this is controversial, and please don't take this out of context. It involves the protagonist exposing fascist supporting saboteurs. And I thought that was really cool. I had to word it a very certain way, because otherwise I've been out of context and they'll destroy me. In the whole idea is basically trying to prevent another major act of sabotage. They finally catch the actual guy who did the crime, and it it ends well. So let's get to the trivia. Just because again, time crunch. Sir Alfred Hitchcock's original cameo was cut by order of the censors. He and his secretary played deaf pedestrians. When Hitchcock's character made an apparently indecent proposal to her in sign language, she slapped his face. A more conventional cameo in front of a drugstore was substituted. No, it's so bullshit, man. They removed a legendary piece. The special effects crew took stills of a Statue of Liberty upraised hand, her torch, and the ledge beneath it. These were recreated to scale on Universal's picture soundstage. The set used as the ranch house of Charles Tobin, Otto Kruger, was used as the home of the Breniers. For another Sir Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds, in 1963, it was originally a leftover set from a Diana Durbin movie shot on a Universal backlot. So we're sort of cutting down on the trivia just because time's sake, obviously. This next film doesn't really need an introduction because that's how I handle these films that are older and I've seen them. It's Bambi. Um, the story of a young deer growing up in the forest. I don't really explain Bambi. You've probably seen it 100 times as a child or throughout your life. Directors include James Alger, Samuel Armstrong, David Hand. Writers include Felix Sultan, Pierce Pierce. That's a name. You know what? I'll receive that. Percy Pierce and Larry Moray. It's just weird. It was weird how he spelled Pierce for that guy. I'm sorry. Stars include Hardy Albright, Stan Alexander, and Babette Audrey. I feel like Babette's a dead name. It has to be a dead name, right? But I'm not going to explain the story of Bambi because we all have seen Bambi. At least I like to imagine we all have. And I'll go right to the trivia. Man in the Forest was a code phrase used by Disney employees when Walt Disney was coming down the hallway. I believe we talked about this a few times. Unusual for the time, Walt Disney insisted on children providing the voices for animals when they were young, instead of using adults mimicking youngsters. I think it makes more sense to use the kids, right? For like the animals. Just me? No matter how skilled the animator, the Disney cartoonist simply could not draw Bambi's father's antlers correctly, or rather accurately. This was because of a very complicated methods required to get around the problem. A plaster cast was made of some real antlers, which was then filmed at all angles. This footage was rotoscoped onto animation cells. That is actually pretty interesting. I did not know that. Well, now I know. To our next lovely film, The Gun for Hire. This is a fun little film. Let me just make sure I have everything ready. I should really prepare a bit better for these, but this one was like a little bit last minute because I was actually debating recording today or not, but I was like, you know what, screw it, I'll do it for you. When assassin Philip Raven shoots a blackmailer and his beautiful female companion dead, he is paid off in marked bills by his treasonous employer who is working with the foreign spies. Oh no. Frank Tuttle is director. Writers include Albert Maltz, W.R. Burnett, and Graham Greene. The stars include Alan Ladd, Veronica Lake, and Robert Preston. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Sorry about that. I typed out a message to somebody. Anyway, back to the film. Let's go to the story just real quick. Eventually, I'm gonna stop going out into these stories because I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. I can feel it. Hitman Philip Raven, who's kind to children and cats, kills a blackmailer and is paid off by a traitor Willard Gates in hot money. Meanwhile, an entertainer, Ellen Graham, girlfriend of police Louette Crane, who's after Raven, is listed by a Senate committee to help investigate Gates. Raven is seeking Gates for revenge and meets Ellen on a train. Their relationship gradually evolves from that of a killer and potential victim to an uneasy alliance against a common enemy. And if you didn't know, this is noir, and I am a very biased boy when it comes to noir. I just love noir. I suppose as due to my childhood, I read a lot of old noir centric comics. Of course, okay, Batman himself is not noir, but let's be real. Some of the early Batman stuff was really pushing that noir envelope. At least in my opinion. So let's just go right to the trivia. After confronting the cops at the club, Raven takes Ellen hostage and flees. He finds a warehouse to hide in, but they must scale a wall. Raven helps Ellen climb the wall, but he first warns her to stay on top until he gets there and not to run. She then replies, "Who do you think I am?" Whirlaway? Whirlaway is an American champion thoroughbred horse that won the U.S. Triple Crown in 1941, the year before this movie was released. The Warner production stars During production, stars Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake were interviewed on set during a live broadcast from Paramount's experimental television station W6XYZ. There were fewer than 100 television receivers in Los Angeles at the time. Intriguing. Okay, and we're gonna go to the next film. Just because, my voice mostly at this point. So the next film is one that won, I believe, around like 6 awards from the Academy, which was a whole fun thing. It was like six Oscars overall. So it's called Mrs. Miniver. I might have mispronounced that. I don't care though. A British family struggles to survive the first months of World War II. Oh boy. I kind of want to dive into history one day on the channel. And it's not just the whole media stuff, obviously, but we'll see. I'm not sure on that one. Director includes William Wyler. Writers include Arthur Wimperis, George Froschel, and James Hilton. Stars include Greer Garson, Walter Pidgeon, and Teresa Wright. Miss Wright, like Phoenix Wright? So let's go a little bit harder in the story. This word of trivia, of course. The Minivers. An English middle-class family experiences life in the first months of World War II. While dodging bombs, the Miniver's son court Lady Belden's granddaughter. A rose is named after Mrs. Miniver and entered into competition against Lady Beldon's rose. So, yeah, that's happening during the whole war. The movie does have a tagline. Voted the greatest movie ever. Made, to be exact. Just because it's funny, and this is like a bit of a goof. Sorry. Ooh, oh my lord, my voice. When Walter Pidgeon hops into bed in his pajamas after returning from Dunkirk, a part of his autonomy, or rather his autonomy, is briefly visible. This was missed in editing and it remains in the films to this day. So, if you want some eye candy, it's there. Winston Churchill once said, "This film had done more for the war effort than a flotilla of destroyers." That's high praise. That's high praise. I actually heard a rumor is that this guy, Mr. Churchill, watched a lot of films during his off time. Which, I mean, in fairness, what else are you going to do during a war effort? In real life, shortly after shooting was completed, Greer Garson married Richard Ney, who plays her son, Vin, in the film. Hey. So next up is Woman of the Year. And yeah, we're currently blitzing through these films, but that's how it is, honestly. This film actually has a cover that I just love. I love this cover, and it'll be probably used for the video's thumbnail. Sports writer Sam Craig and columnist Tess Harding, with the same New York newspaper, overcome their initial antagonism, fall in love and get married, only to find a relationship strained when he comes to her to resent, her hectic lifestyle. Which, I mean, is fair. I feel like they didn't know each other well enough. Director is George Stevens. Writers include Ring Lardner Jr., Michael Cannon, and John Lee Main. Stars include Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, the Hepburn, and Faye Banter. I love Katharine Hepburn. She's just such a beautiful woman. She does an amazing job. But enough blazing Miss Hepburn. And of course, it has been. I believe we've seen Mr. Tracy and Hepburn together a number of times. This might be one of their last duo films. I believe it could be. It might be wrong though. But yeah, this film does have a lot of good comedy. It's a screwball, obviously. And as you know, my opinion on screwballs is not the highest. But overall, I enjoyed it. The ending was meh, but that's just how it be sometimes. Katharine Hepburn refused to reveal who wrote the screenplay to Louis B. Mayer until after he bought the project from Hepburn. Hepburn was afraid that Mayer would lowball the two authors, Michael Cannon and Ring Lardner Jr., because at the time they were both relatively unknown. See, we gotta love Hepburn. She didn't want to screw over people. Yeah, I love that. At the time he met Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy was already living apart from his wife, spending most of his time in his suite at Beverly Hills Hotel, while his wife and children lived on a ranch in San Fernando Valley. San Fernando Valley. So, my apologies. I think I was thinking about somebody else when it came to these films in the duo. I'm it, might- I might have been thinking I might have been thinking about it's Cagney and it's Cagney and somebody else, but I can't remember. I don't care enough to try and figure it out. Next up is Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yankee Doodle Dandy. Sorry, it's in my head. The life of a renowned musical composer, playwright, actor, dancer, and singer George M. Cohan. Director is Michael Curtis. Writers include Robert Buckner, Edmund Joseph, Julius J. Epstein. Stars include James Cagney, Joanne Leslie, and Walter Houston. One living moment, people. One living moment. Okay, sorry, I had to talk to somebody real fast. So, what I will say here is this film really kind of took America by storm because the whole Yankee Doodle Dandy thing. Um, because this film is not actually too accurate to real life for the actual person it's based around, and we're doing that right now actually. With the trivia, many facts were changed or ignored to add to the feel of a movie. For example, real life George M. Cohan was married twice, and although his second wife's middle name was Mary, he went by her first name, Agnes. In fact, the movie deviated from the truth to such a degree that Cohen's daughter, Georgette, commented, "That's the kind of life Daddy would have liked to have lived." So, despite failing health, the real George M. Cohan acted briefly as a consultant to the film. He lived long enough to see the finished result and approved wholeheartedly of Jane Cagney's depiction of himself. That's good. I believe it's like one or two other times we actually seen a actual person like a film is based around actually like see the film on set and like stuff like that. The other time I think it was like recent enough was about a guy who like he like ran like a church for like young boys or something like that. It's been a while, so pardon me. So next up is Road to Morocco. We only have like 5 films left, about 4 or 5, whatever. This is another comedy film, if I remember correctly. But that's just how it be. So two carefree castaways on a desert shore find an Arabian Night city where they compete for the luscious Princess Shamar. I bet you can imagine that no one this main cast are Moroccan are anything that involves North Africa or Middle East or anything like that. At least as far as I recall. But this is how it is sometimes, especially back then. So let's hop right into trivia because time constraint. The camel spitting in Turkey's face. Oh wait. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I'm being so disrespectful. For the director and all the other people. Director includes David Butler. Writers include Frank Butler, Don Hartman, and Eric Sherrill. So include Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and Dorothy Lamour. I felt so bad. I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm skipping stuff all like crazy because I'm trying to rush, like, and it's kind of a jerk move. So you know what? This I'm a jerk about that. Storyline. Let's go to the storyline. Jeff and Turkey, two wild and crazy guys, adrift on a raft in the Mediterranean. I might say that also wrong. Mediterranean are cast away on a desert in shore and hop a convenient camel to an Arabian night city, where Turkey soon finds himself sold as a slave to the luscious Princess Shamar of Karmesh. Naturally, Jeff would like to rescue Turkey from this dire fate, even if it means taking his place. But they haven't figured out on a broad desert chieftain Malay Chasm, who designs on the princess himself. It's a good comedy. I'll say that immediately. It's solid. But I don't have enough time to really dive too deep, unfortunately. The camel spitting in Turkey's face wasn't planned. Bob Hope's recoil and Ben Crosby's reaction were so funny that it was left in the final cut. That's good. It's a nice natural response to something that's very real, because camels are assholes. In an interview, Dorothy Lamour commented that the boys ad-libbed their lines so much she often didn't know when to say her lines, so they didn't give her a cue. Yeah, this film is very much ad-libbed to hell. That's something that's everybody talks about. But the next film, our fourth film, that's left on the list, is To Be or To Not Be, or to be or to not to be, which is a very, very famous phrase. You probably heard it at least once in your life. During the German occupation of Poland, an acting troupe becomes embroiled in a Polish soldier's efforts to track down a German spy. Director includes Ernest Lubitsch. Writers include Melchior Legnal, Edwin Justice Mayer, and Ernest Lubitsch. Stars include Carol Lombard, Jack Benny, and Robert Stack. And as you know, Miss Lombard is dead this year. As we learned in the other film we did not long ago, in the very same episode here. Rest in peace to her, though, of course. So this is a fun, a nice fun film. I'll say that much. It is quite funny. To just dive into the summary here, it is very much a fun comedy. It's also a drama, because you have to be kind of serious diving into, well, the Nazis. This film lambasts them to hell, very, very much deservedly. But trivia: Miriam Hawkins was the original choice for Maria Tora, according to Ben Mashkowitz on TCM. She turned down a role when she realized Jack Benny had all the laughs, and her part would be largely his straight man. Carol Lombard saw the overall quality of the material and took the part. This was Carol Lombard's final film before she and her mother died in a plane crash on January 16th, 1942, at the age of 33. No one on board survived the tragedy. Rest in peace to both of them. Next up is The Gentleman Jim. And we're almost done with this lovely episode. Great. As bare-knuckled boxing enters the modern era, brash extrovert and Jim Corbett uses new rules and dazzling innovative footwork to rise to the top of the boxing world. So I love boxing, so this film was a great time. I'll say that much. So we have to dive into our lovely director, which is Raoul Walsh. Writers include Vincent Lawrence, Horace McCoy, and James J. Corbett. Corbett, excuse me. Stars include Errol Flynn, Alexis Smith, and Jack Carson. Ooh boy, oh boy. So, well, I'll say this is again spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film and you wanna enjoy that, I will say this just for the storyline quickly first here is, so boxing is considered an illegal and disreputable enterprise in 1880 San Francisco. The wealthy and influential members of the prestigious Olympic Club that makes sport a gentlemanly one. They sponsor a brash extrovert, young bank clerk, Jim, who quickly becomes an accomplished fighter under the new Marquis of Queensberry rules. Despite his success with young Irish Americans' social pretensions and boastful manner soon estranged him from his benefactors, who plot to give their conceited former protege a well-deserved comeuppance. Despite this, his dazzlingly innovative footwork helps him to beat a succession of bigger and stronger men. He finds himself fighting for the world championship against his childhood idol, John L. Sullivan. Which, spoiler alert, Jim beats John, and contrary to what people might expect, John being angry, he actually presents Jim with with it at a party. The belt, the giant W. I thought that was really cool. It was really sweet. Something not so sweet there was this trivia. Although production was shut down for a time after Errol Flynn suffered a mild heart attack, he came back and finished the picture. It's not very sweet. During the filming of A Gentleman Jim, 1942, Errol Flynn suffered a mild heart attack. His weak heart kept him from serving in the armed forces during World War II. Very unfortunate. That was actually one of the reasons why a number of men actually did not serve. People often were trying to find any reason not to serve because they would die, obviously, and or something along those lines. Next up we have Cat People. This is a interesting film. And apparently it actually does have a remake, like 40 years later. Might be wrong about that though. An American man marries a Serbian immigrant who fears that she will turn into the cat person of her homeland's fables if they are intimate together. That's a very weird one. Director includes Jaquas Torner. Writer includes DeWitt Bowden. Stars include Simone Simon and Tom Conway and Kent Smith. This is a fun little horror film. I'll say that much. Because it feels kind of so it's a fable. Obviously, it feels kind of nonsensical to a degree. But overall, I thought it was kind of romantic to a degree. uh, but it does end in a rather sad way if if you fall in love with the female lead, obviously. Unfortunately. So she is basically hit and killed by a car later in the film. But the thing that killed her, well, like led to her death, actually was her freeing an animal. That's what killed her in the end. Unfortunately, but I can't dive too much, again, in time, unfortunately. But trivia. The horror movie technique of slowly building tension to a jarring shock, which turns out to be something completely harmless and benign, became known as a Luton bus after a famous scene in this movie created by producer Val Luton. Technique is also referred to as a cat scene, as an off-screen noise were often revealed to be startled, harmless cat. The film was in theaters for so long that critics who had originally bashed the film were able to see it again, and many rewrote their reviews with a more positive spin. Which, I mean, is fair. This is a film I thought was really subtle, like how it did things and its horror, which I thought it was cool, very cool. Which ironically enough, the actual people that like fun of the film, the executive people, they didn't think the film actually would do good because it was way too subtle for them. And to compete with actual what's the word, Universal's like brand of horror, which at the time was like the biggest form of horror was theirs. But next up is our final film of the day, which is Random Harvest. And sorry, an amnesiac World War I veteran falls in love with a music hall star after escaping from a hospital in the English Midlands. He suffers an accident which restores his original memories but erases his post-war life, which is very unfortunate. Oh no. Oh no. Sorry about that. I had to quickly cough so I can mute myself just so you wouldn't hear that. Water. Director includes Marvin Leroy. Writers include Claudine West, George Frostchild, and Arthur Wimperis. Stars include Ronald Coleman, Greer Garson, and Philip Dorn. Oh boy, oh boy. So let's quickly dive into the of course the whole World War thing here. A veteran of World War One marries and settles happily into a tidy, humble life until an accident brings back his memories of his former life, which he was rich and privileged, obviously. But it blocked off all of his current life, which he basically like runs away, and he claims his vast inheritance. And his wife, his wife, he doesn't recognize her and all that. And this film ends in a certain way, and I'll quickly dive into how it ends. Because mind you, I believe this is based off a book of the same name that came out like a year prior. So this is like a pretty fast adaptation of a thing. At least as far as I can remember, this might be like one of the first very very quick adaptations of a book to film, which I thought was really cool. um, Eventually, in the end, obviously, this has to end in only one real way. Otherwise, it'd be too sad. And he eventually recognizes his old wife, and he basically kisses her and hugs her and all that stuff, and he calls her by her name, effectively. Um, as far as I can recall. It's been a while. But to trivia before we hop out of here. Of course, I still have like things to do, but that's okay. When shooting wrapped, they usually President Ronald Coleman said, "This is the one picture I hate to finish." Fair. For the picnic scenes, and scene in which Smithy proposes to Paula, Greer Garson wanted to ride her own bicycle, but for authenticity's sake, authenticity, but the art department found her a vintage 1918 vehicle. When production finished, Mervyn LeRoy gave her a new bike, which she gradually, gleefully rode through the streets of Beverly Hills to the delight of tourists. Ah, good film. Solid film. So let's quickly head over to the Syphies, which I think I think I was gonna end because I didn't care for it anymore. It was like it's whatever, but might as well do it one more time. So our films that won this year was Mrs. Miniver, Yankee Doodle Dandy, The Pride of the Yankees, and Random Harvest. So I will agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Miniver and Random Harvest. A film that I think should have won at least one, in my opinion, was Casablanca, which it did not win this year, which is really um okay. um so if you're curious as to why it didn't win, it's because it came out very late in the year. So it would not get its awards until the next year. And I get it. It's very funny that a film coming out in the same year did not get to participate in that year, but this is how it is. Um, that's my choice. It's still won in the end, and then like 1943. But it's just kind of silly to me. Kind of silly. Um, Beyond that film, our actors who actually won something was James Cagney for the film Yankee Doodle Dandy. I agree. Cagney did good. Greer Garson from Mrs. Miniver. Okay, I agree. Best supporting actor is Van Heflin, which is for the film Johnny Eager, which I think it came out like the year before that, but it was eligible still. And the best supporting actress was Teresa Wright, which I agree. These are ones I actually agree with, so I won't change anything really there, honestly. And finally, let's go to our music of 1942. So this year is kind of a shame fresh, honestly. But we do have a song I did enjoy, which I have a list. Hold on. Okay, so the three songs I liked a lot. There were three. Was Tangerine, which was by Jimmy Dorsey and his orchestra. What else was there? I think it was Bing Crosby's White Christmas, obviously. That's a classic. The thing we all listened to at least once, right? Um, and what was the other one? It was Chatanango Choo Choo, which it's been a while, man. Leave me alone. Beyond that, I also enjoyed Sleepy Lagoon. This is a very good time for music, honestly. The American Patrol, Night and Day. What else was there? Skylark. Yeah, these were a fun time for music. But that is all for 1942, and for my voice finally kicks the bucket. But I hope you guys enjoyed this particular episode, and I'll see you guys next time.